The acceptance letter was still warm from the printer when my mother crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. Computer science? She laughed, actually laughed, as she brushed imaginary dust off her hands. Gwendolyn, sweetheart, be realistic. That's not a career for girls like you. My name is Gwendolyn, and that moment, watching my full ride scholarship to Stanford disappear into our kitchen garbage, was the day I learned exactly how much my family valued my dreams. Spoiler alert, it wasn't much. But, Mom, it's a full scholarship. I wouldn't cost you anything. It's not about the money. Dad's voice cut through mine like a blade. He didn't even look up from his newspaper. Reed needs support for law school, real support, not some fantasy about playing with computers. Reed, my younger brother by 4 years, currently sprawled across our living room couch in yesterday's clothes, controller in hand, completely oblivious to the conversation reshaping both our futures. The golden child who'd scraped through undergrad with a 2.8 GPA, while I graduated summa cum laude. Playing with computers? The words tasted bitter. Dad, I built the entire inventory system for your store, the one that increased your profits by 30% last year. That's different. That's helping family. Mom's smile was the kind that never reached her eyes, which is exactly what you'll be doing now. Reed's LSAT scores are excellent. With the right support, he could get into Harvard Law. I wanted to point out that Reed's excellent LSAT scores came after 3 attempts and a very expensive prep course. I wanted to mention that my SAT scores were higher than his on the first try. I wanted to scream. Instead, I watched Reed pause his video game long enough to grab another energy drink from the coffee table. He finally noticed we were talking about him. "What's going on?" he asked, not bothering to sit up. "Your sister's going to help fund your law school education," Dad announced, folding his newspaper with satisfaction. "She's decided not to pursue college right now." "Cool." Reed's attention was already back on his game. "Thanks, Gwen." That was it. No questions about what I wanted, no acknowledgement of what I was giving up, just cool and thanks like I'd offered to pick up his dry cleaning. "We've already looked into it," Mom continued, pulling out a folder thick with printouts. "There's a data entry position at the insurance company downtown, and the restaurant on 5th Street needs weekend help. Between both jobs, you should be able to contribute about 2,000 a month toward Reed's expenses." 2,000 a month? I did the math instantly, a skill that apparently made me perfect for data entry but not for computer science. Over 4 years, that was nearly $100,000, the same amount my Stanford scholarship would have covered. "What about my acceptance letter?" I asked quietly. "Sweetheart, you can always go back to school later," Mom said, her voice dripping with false comfort. "After Reed's established in his career, family comes first." I walked over to the trash can and pulled out my crumpled letter. The Stanford seal was smudged but still visible. Full ride, computer science program. My name printed in official university letterhead. "I need some air," I said. "Don't be dramatic, Gwendolyn." Dad's voice followed me to the door. "This is what families do. We sacrifice for each other." I stepped outside into the evening air, still clutching my letter. The streetlights were just flickering on, casting long shadows across our suburban neighborhood. Behind me, I could hear Reed's video game music and my parents' satisfied conversation about law school rankings. That's when I made myself a promise. Standing there in the growing darkness, holding the future they'd stolen from me, I swore that someday they would know exactly what they'd thrown away. Someday they would understand the cost of their choice. I smoothed out the letter carefully, folded it, and tucked it into my jacket pocket. I wouldn't throw it away. I'd keep it as a reminder. They thought they were writing my story, deciding my worth, determining my limits. They thought I'd disappear quietly into the background, a supporting character in Reed's grand narrative. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. 6 months later, I was living a double life I never asked for. "Gwendolyn, table 12 needs their check," my manager called across the restaurant floor. It was 9 p.m. on a Saturday, and I'd already put in 8 hours at the insurance office that morning. I grabbed the receipt printer, my feet screaming in protest. The data entry job paid decent money, but sitting hunched over a computer for 8 hours straight was killing my back. The restaurant work was killing everything else. "Here you go," I said, forcing a smile as I handed the check to a family of four. The dad barely looked up from his phone. The mom was scrolling through social media. Their kids were absorbed in tablets. Just like Reed, I thought, then immediately pushed the comparison away. I couldn't afford to be bitter during work hours. I needed both these jobs. My phone buzzed with a text as I cleared their table. It was from Reed, naturally, a photo of him and his law school buddies at some upscale bar, drinks raised to the camera. The caption read, "Celebrating my internship at Morrison and Associates, thanks to everyone who believed in me." Everyone who believed in him, right? Like the family that was funding his entire existence. Rough night? I looked up to see Vanessa sliding into the booth I was cleaning. My childhood friend looked polished and professional in her blazer and jeans, the kind of outfit I used to imagine wearing to my own job someday. "What are you doing here?" I asked, genuinely surprised. Vanessa worked in tech downtown and usually avoided this part of town. "Came to see you, obviously. When's your break?" "I don't really take breaks." "You're taking one now." She waved at my manager. "Hey, Mike, I'm stealing your best waitress for 10 minutes." Mike nodded absently. Vanessa had that effect on people, confident enough that they just went along with whatever she said. We stepped outside into the parking lot. The cool night air felt amazing after the stuffy restaurant. "You look exhausted," Vanessa said, not bothering with small talk. "Thanks. Really what every girl wants to hear." "I'm serious, Gwen. When's the last time you did something for yourself? Something that wasn't about paying for Reed's future?" I started to deflect, but she held up a hand. "Before you say, 'I'm fine,' let me tell you what I see." My brilliant best friend, who used to code circles around everyone in high school, is now working two dead end jobs to fund her brother's law degree. The same brother who posts party photos while you're here serving overpriced pasta to families who don't even say thank you. "It's temporary," I said automatically, "just until Reed graduates." "That's 4 years, Gwen. 4 years of your life. Family comes first." I repeated my parents' words, but they sounded hollow even to me. Vanessa pulled out her phone and showed me a job posting. "My company is looking for freelance developers, remote work, flexible hours. The pay is actually decent." I stared at the screen. I haven't coded in months. I wouldn't even know where to start. "Yes, you would. Remember the inventory system you built for your dad's store? That was solid work. Better than half the stuff we see from people with computer science degrees." "I can't. I don't have time." "You're already working 16-hour days. What's a few more hours if they're actually building towards something?" I handed her phone back. My parents would kill me if they found out I was doing side work instead of focusing on Reed's expenses. "So don't tell them." The words hung in the air between us. Don't tell them. It sounded so simple, so obvious, and yet so impossible. "Think about it," Vanessa said, checking her watch. "I have to run, but I'm sending you some beginner freelance sites. Just look at them. See what's out there." She hugged me quickly and headed to her car, leaving me standing in the parking lot with a head full of dangerous possibilities. Back inside, I finished my shift on autopilot, took orders, served food, cleaned tables, smiled at customers who barely acknowledged my existence. But Vanessa's words kept echoing in my head. At home, I found Reed sprawled across the kitchen table, law books scattered everywhere. He looked up when I walked in. "Hey, can you keep it down tonight? I have a big exam tomorrow and I really need to focus." I stared at him. I just worked a 16-hour day to pay for those law books, and he was asking me to keep it down in my own house. "Sure," I said quietly. "No problem." In my room, I opened my laptop and stared at the blank screen. Then I opened my email and found Vanessa's message with the freelance links. Just looking couldn't hurt, right? 3 months of secret coding later, I was making more money in my spare bedroom than at both my day jobs combined. "Gwendolyn, you look tired," Mom said, setting down her coffee cup at our monthly family dinner. "Are you getting enough sleep?" "I'm fine," I lied, cutting into my chicken. The truth was, I'd been up until 3 a.m. finishing a website for a small business in Portland. My third project this month. "She's probably staying up late worrying about money," Dad said, not looking up from his plate. "The restaurant cut her hours last week." Reed perked up. "Wait, does that mean less money for my expenses?" "Don't worry, sweetheart." Mom reached over to pat his hand. "We'll figure something out. Maybe Gwendolyn can pick up more shifts at the insurance office." I bit my tongue. The restaurant hadn't cut my hours. I'd requested fewer shifts so I could take on more freelance work, but I couldn't exactly explain that. "Actually," Reed continued, "I wanted to talk to you guys about something. My study group is presenting our research project next week, and I think it's really going to impress Professor Martinez." "That's wonderful, honey," Mom beamed. "Tell us about it." Reed launched into a detailed explanation of his project on digital privacy law. As he talked, something nagged at me. The structure, the arguments, even some of the specific examples sounded familiar. Then it hit me. Reed, I interrupted, can you send me a copy of your presentation? I'd love to read it. Why? He looked suspicious. I'm proud of you. I want to see what you've been working on. His expression softened. Yeah, okay. I'll email it to you tonight. 2 hours later, I was staring at my laptop screen in complete disbelief. Reed's research project was my portfolio piece from 6 months ago, the one I'd written about data protection laws for a client's website. He'd changed maybe 10% of the content and slapped his name on it. My phone rang. Vanessa. Hey, how was family dinner? She asked. Reed plagiarized my work. What? I explained the whole thing while pacing around my room. He literally copied my research and is presenting it as his own project to his law professor. That's insane. Are you going to confront him? With what proof? I can't exactly show him my freelance portfolio without explaining why I have one. Gwen, this is getting ridiculous. You're working yourself to death to pay for his education, and he's stealing your work to get better grades. I know, but nothing. You need to tell your parents what's really going on. The next morning, I was still debating what to do when I overheard a conversation that made the decision for me. I'd come home early from the insurance office. They'd given me the afternoon off and found Mom on the phone in the kitchen. She was talking to her sister, Aunt Patricia. Oh, Reed is doing so well, Mom was saying. His professors are very impressed. Just last week, he presented this brilliant research project on digital privacy law, completely original work. I froze in the hallway. Yes, he's always been the smart one, Mom continued. Thank goodness we made the right choice about college funding. Poor Gwendolyn just wasn't cut out for academic work. She's much better suited to her current jobs. Actually, Mom's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Reed's professor was so impressed that he's recommending Reed for a summer internship at a top firm. The connections Reed is making will set him up for life. I backed away from the kitchen, my heart pounding. Reed was getting opportunities based on my stolen work, while Mom told relatives I wasn't smart enough for college. That evening, Reed bounded into the house with a huge grin. Guess what? He announced to the family. Professor Martinez loved my presentation so much that he's putting me in touch with his friend at Davidson and Associates. They might have a summer position for me. That's incredible. Dad actually stood up to shake Reed's hand. I'm so proud of you, son. This calls for a celebration, Mom said, already reaching for her phone. I'll make reservations at Romano's. The expensive place? I asked. Of course, this is a special occasion. Mom looked at me expectantly. You don't mind covering dinner, do you? It's for Reed's future. I stared at them. My parents wanted me to pay for a celebration dinner honoring my brother's success built on my stolen work. Actually, I said slowly, I do mind. The room went silent. Dad lowered his newspaper. Mom stopped scrolling through her phone. Reed looked genuinely confused. Excuse me? Mom's voice was dangerously quiet. I said I mind. I'm not paying for dinner tonight. Gwendolyn, Dad's voice carried a warning. We've discussed this. Family comes first. Whose family? The words came out before I could stop them. Because it seems like I'm the only one making sacrifices here. Reed laughed nervously. Come on, Gwen. Don't be dramatic. It's just dinner. Just dinner. Just like my scholarship was just a piece of paper. Just like my work was just something he could steal. You're right, I said, grabbing my keys. It is just dinner. Enjoy it. I walked out, leaving them staring after me in shock. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The confrontation changed everything. My family started treating me like I was having some kind of breakdown, while my secret life exploded with opportunities. Gwendolyn, we need to talk. Mom cornered me in the kitchen 3 days later. Your father and I are concerned about your attitude lately. My attitude? The outburst at dinner, refusing to support your brother. This isn't like you. I poured myself coffee, keeping my voice level. Maybe you don't know me as well as you think. Don't be ridiculous. You're just stressed from working so much. Maybe you should take a vacation. With what money? Mom's expression softened into her practiced sympathy face. Sweetheart, I know this is hard, but Reed's internship could lead to amazing opportunities. The connections he's making. based on work he stole from me. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Mom blinked. What are you talking about? Nothing. Forget it. But she was already shaking her head. You're being paranoid, Gwendolyn. Reed would never. Never what? Never take credit for something he didn't do? That's enough. Dad appeared in the doorway, fully dressed for work. I won't have you undermining your brother's achievements because you're jealous. Jealous. The word hit like a slap. I'm not jealous, Dad. I'm tired. Then maybe you should focus on your own responsibilities instead of tearing down Reed's success. I grabbed my laptop bag and headed for the door. I have to get to work. Both jobs? Mom called after me, something like that. What they didn't know was that I'd quit the restaurant 2 weeks ago. My freelance income had tripled, and I was getting requests faster than I could handle them. But I still left the house at the same times, maintaining the illusion of my double shifts while actually working from coffee shops and the library. At Starbucks downtown, I opened my laptop and found 17 new messages, 3 project inquiries, 2 completed payment notifications, and 12 emails about something that made my heart race. Vanessa had recommended me for a major contract with her company. They needed someone to rebuild their entire client management system. The pay was more than I made in 6 months at my day jobs combined. My phone buzzed with a text from her. Coffee in 20, I have news. 20 minutes later, she slid into the seat across from me, practically vibrating with excitement. They want to meet you, she said without preamble. Who? My boss. The whole development team. They looked at your portfolio samples and they're impressed, really impressed. I stared at her. Vanessa, I can't if my family finds out. Finds out what? That you're incredibly talented? That you're making more money than Reed ever will as a first year lawyer? They'd never forgive me for lying. They'd never forgive you for succeeding, you mean? Before I could respond, my phone rang. Reed's name flashed on the screen. I have to take this, I told Vanessa, then answered. Hey, Gwen, thank God, I need a huge favor. What kind of favor? I'm supposed to give a presentation to some potential employers next week, and I'm completely swamped with other coursework. Could you help me research some stuff? You're really good at that kind of thing. I looked at Vanessa, who was watching my face with growing concern. What kind of research? I asked. Just some background on corporate law trends. Nothing too complicated. I'll send you the outline. Nothing too complicated, like the simple research project he'd already stolen from me. Reed, I'm really busy with work right now. Come on, it's just a few hours and it's for my career. What about my career? He laughed. Your career? Gwen, you work data entry and wait tables. This is different. This is important. The line went quiet. I could hear him breathing, waiting for me to cave like I always did. Send me the outline, I said finally. I'll see what I can do. You're the best. I owe you big time. I hung up and looked at Vanessa, who was shaking her head. Please tell me you're not actually going to help him. I'm going to help him, I said slowly, but not the way he thinks. What do you mean? I opened my laptop and pulled up the contract offer from Vanessa's company. The numbers were staggering. More money than my parents made in a year, more than Reed would make his first 3 years out of law school. I mean, it's time to stop hiding. You're going to tell your family? Not yet, but I'm going to take this contract. And when Reed asks for help with his presentation, I'm going to give him exactly what he deserves. Vanessa grinned. I like the sound of that. There's something else, I said, scrolling through my emails. I got a message from someone at the university. They want to discuss funding opportunities for underrepresented students in tech, a scholarship program, something like that. I closed my laptop and looked at her. I think it's time to start building something bigger than just my own success. Revenge? Justice. Reed's graduation was 3 weeks away when my parents ambushed me with their latest demand. We need to talk about Reed's graduation gift, Mom announced, spreading brochures across the kitchen table like she was planning a military operation. I looked down at the glossy pages: Rolex watches, BMW lease agreements, a vacation package to Europe. These are expensive? I said carefully. Well, of course they are. This is a once in a lifetime achievement. Dad tapped the Rolex brochure. This one seems appropriate. It's what successful lawyers wear. How much? 15,000. But think of it as an investment in Reed's future. $15,000. I just signed the contract with Vanessa's company for 30,000, but my parents didn't know that. As far as they knew, I was still scraping by on my two regular jobs. I don't have $15,000, I said. You could get a loan, Mom suggested, or we could set up a payment plan. A payment plan for a watch? It's not just a watch, Gwendolyn. It's a symbol. Reed needs to look the part when he starts interviewing at top firms. I stared at them. You want me to go into debt to buy Reed a luxury watch. We want you to support your brother's success, Dad corrected, the way families do. What about my success? The question hung in the air. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. Sweetheart, Mom's voice took on that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. We know you're doing your best, but Reed's achievements are different. They're going to benefit the whole family. How exactly do they benefit me? Well, Dad cleared his throat. When Reed's established in his career, he'll be able to help you, maybe get you a better job. Administrative work at his firm, perhaps. Administrative work. After everything I'd sacrificed, they saw my future as answering phones at Reed's law office. I'm not buying the watch, I said. Gwendolyn, I'm not buying the watch, the car, or the vacation. I'm done. Mom's face crumpled. How can you be so selfish after everything we've done for you? What have you done for me? We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head. You mean the basic requirements of being parents? Dad slammed his hand on the table. That's enough. You're being ungrateful and cruel. I'm being honest. You're being jealous, Mom said, tears starting to form. I know it's hard watching Reed succeed while you're struggling, but that doesn't give you the right to sabotage his moment. Sabotage? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. How's refusing to buy him a $15,000 watch sabotage? Because you're supposed to support him. Mom was crying now. That's what sisters do. That's what family means. What about what Reed's supposed to do for me? What about what you and Dad are supposed to do? We've given you everything, Dad said coldly. A home, opportunities to contribute to something meaningful. You gave me nothing. You took my scholarship, my future, my dreams, and you gave them to Reed. And now you want me to celebrate that theft by going into debt for a watch. Your scholarship was never going to lead anywhere, Mom sobbed. Computer science? For a girl, we saved you from wasting 4 years on a fantasy. The words hit like physical blows. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You have no idea what you're talking about. Sit down, Dad ordered. We're not finished. Yes, we are. I walked toward the door, but Mom's voice stopped me. If you walk away now, don't expect us to forget this. Reed's graduation is the most important day of our lives, and you're trying to ruin it. I turned back to face them. Reed's graduation isn't being ruined by me refusing to buy him a watch. If it's ruined, it'll be because you finally see what you've done. What we've done? Dad stood up, his face red. We've raised a successful son and an ungrateful daughter. You've raised a son who steals other people's work and a daughter who learned to succeed despite you, not because of you. That's ridiculous. Is it? When's the last time either of you asked about my life, my goals, my achievements? Silence. When's the last time you celebrated anything I did? More silence. That's what I thought. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Where are you going? Mom called after me. To work, you know, that thing I do to pay for Reed's life. Gwendolyn, please, we can discuss this rationally? No, we can't, because you don't see me as a person worth discussing things with. You see me as Reed's funding source. I paused at the door and looked back at them. Mom was still crying. Dad looked furious and confused. I'll be at Reed's graduation, I said quietly, but not for the reasons you think. I left them sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by brochures for gifts I'd never buy, finally understanding that the conversation we'd just had was the last one we'd ever have as the family they thought we were. The night before Reed's graduation, the house felt like a war zone. She's lost her mind, I heard Mom telling someone on the phone as I walked through the front door. Completely selfish. Poor Reed is so disappointed. I found Reed in the kitchen, stress eating leftover pizza while scrolling through his phone. Hey, he said without looking up. Mom told me you're not contributing to my graduation gifts. That's right. Why? He finally looked at me, and for a second, he looked like the little brother I used to help with homework. I don't understand what I did wrong. The innocent act might have worked 6 months ago. Now it just made me angry. You really don't know? Know what? I pulled out my phone and opened the email he'd sent me 3 weeks ago, the research request for his big presentation to potential employers. Tell me about this presentation you're giving next week. His face brightened. Oh man, it's going to be amazing. I've been working on it for months. It's all about emerging trends in digital privacy law and how they'll affect corporate litigation strategies. Sounds complex? It is, but I think I've really nailed it. Professor Martinez says it's graduate level work. I'm sure it is. Can I see it? Why? I'm curious about what you've been working on. He hesitated, then shrugged. Sure, I guess. It's on my laptop upstairs. 5 minutes later, I was staring at my own work again. Not just the research I'd done for him, he'd taken three different pieces from my freelance portfolio and stitched them together: my analysis of GDPR compliance, my breakdown of California privacy legislation, my predictions about future regulatory trends. Read? I said carefully. Where did you get this research? I told you, I've been working on it for months. This section about GDPR compliance, the specific examples you use, where did those come from? I researched them. What about this part about California's privacy laws? These aren't public cases, they're from private consulting reports. His face was starting to flush. I have good sources. What sources? Look, Gwen, I don't have time for 20 questions. The presentation is next week, and I still need to practice. You stole this from me. The words hung in the air between us. Reed's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's crazy. How could I steal something from you? You don't even work in law. No, but I work in tech, and every single piece of research in this presentation came from projects I did for clients over the past year. That's impossible. I opened my laptop and pulled up my freelance portfolio. Side by side, the similarities were undeniable. Same analysis, same examples, same conclusions, even some of the exact same phrasing. Reed stared at the screen, his face going pale. I can explain. Explain what? How you've been stealing my work for months? How you built your entire law school reputation on research I did? It's not like that. Then what is it like? He ran his hands through his hair, looking panicked. Okay, maybe I used some of your research as a starting point, but I expanded on it. I made it better. You changed the headers and called it your own work. Gwen, please, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. These presentations, these internship opportunities, they're everything. My whole future depends on them. What about my future? Your future? He looked genuinely confused. You're doing fine. You have your jobs, you're helping the family. I'm funding your life while you steal my work to advance your career. It's not stealing if we're family. We're supposed to help each other. I stared at him. Help each other? When have you ever helped me? I I mean, I would if you needed it, but you don't really need help with anything important. Important? You know what I mean. Your work is just, it's not the same as what I'm doing. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to make a real difference using my research. Using research that wouldn't exist without the opportunities mom and dad gave me. They invested in my education so I could succeed. This is just part of that investment paying off. I closed my laptop and stood up. You're unbelievable. Gwen, wait. Don't make this into a big thing. Tomorrow's my graduation. Can't we just celebrate and figure this out later? There's nothing to figure out. My phone buzzed with a text. It was from Dean Kent at the university. Everything is confirmed for tomorrow. Are you ready? I looked at Reed, who was still sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by stolen work and borrowed success. Actually, I said, I think tomorrow is going to be very interesting. What do you mean? You'll see. I headed upstairs, leaving him staring after me with growing concern. In my room, I opened my laptop and made one final check of everything Dean Kent and I had planned. Tomorrow, Reed would get his moment in the spotlight, but it wouldn't be the moment he was expecting. The auditorium was packed. I sat 3 rows behind my family, watching Mom fuss with her camera while Dad checked his watch for the 10th time. I can't believe she's not sitting with us, Mom whispered loudly to Dad, on Reed's special day. Reed kept turning around to scan the crowd, his graduation cap slightly crooked. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. Our conversation last night had clearly rattled him. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dean Kent to the podium. The applause died down as Dean Kent adjusted his microphone. He was exactly as I'd imagined from our phone calls: distinguished, authoritative, with the kind of presence that commanded attention. Before we begin today's ceremony, he announced, I have a very special announcement to make. My heart started pounding. This was it. Our law school has just received an extraordinary gift, a full scholarship endowment that will support underrepresented students pursuing careers in technology law for generations to come. Murmurs rippled through the audience. I could see my parents looking confused, probably wondering why the dean was talking about technology at Reed's graduation. This scholarship, valued at over $2 million, comes from an alumna of our university who chose to give back in a remarkable way. $2 million, the number I'd arrived at after months of planning, every penny I'd made from freelancing, plus the advance from 3 major contracts I'd signed. It had cleaned out my savings, but it was worth it. The donor specifically requested that we announce this scholarship today at this ceremony because she believes in the power of education to transform lives. Dean Kent paused and looked directly at me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet the founder of the Gwendolyn Ross Technology Law Scholarship, Miss Gwendolyn Ross herself. The spotlight hit me like a physical force. The entire auditorium turned to look at me as I stood up, my legs shaking. Miss Ross, would you please join me on stage? The walk down the aisle felt like it took forever. I could hear whispers, gasps, the sound of my mother's sharp intake of breath. Reed's face was white as a sheet. Miss Ross graduated summa cum laude from our undergraduate program before building a successful career in technology consulting, Dean Kent continued as I climbed the steps to the stage. Her scholarship will specifically support students who, like herself, might not otherwise have access to advanced legal education. I reached the podium and looked out at the sea of faces. My parents were staring at me like they'd never seen me before. Reed looked like he might be sick. Miss Ross, would you like to say a few words? Dean Kent handed me the microphone. My hands were trembling, but my voice came out steady. Thank you, Dean Kent. When I was 18, I received a full scholarship to Stanford for computer science. I was told that scholarship wasn't important, that my dreams weren't worth pursuing, and that my role was to support someone else's success instead of building my own. The auditorium was completely silent. I was told that computer science wasn't a real career for someone like me, that I should be realistic about my limitations. That family meant sacrificing my future for someone else's. I found my parents in the crowd. Mom's hand was pressed to her mouth. Dad looked stunned. But I didn't give up. I taught myself to code in secret. I built a business while working 2 jobs to fund someone else's education. And today, that business is successful enough to endow this scholarship so that other students won't have to choose between their dreams and their family's expectations. The applause started slowly, then built to a roar. People were standing up, clapping, some wiping their eyes. This scholarship isn't just about money, I continued when the noise died down. It's about recognizing that talent and determination don't always come in the packages we expect. It's about giving opportunities to students whose families might not understand their potential. I looked directly at Reed, who was slumped in his seat. And it's about proving that success built on stolen work and borrowed achievements isn't success at all. Real success comes from your own effort, your own talent, your own integrity. The applause was deafening now. I could see reporters in the back taking notes, cameras flashing, people recording with their phones. Dean Kent took the microphone back. The first recipient of the Gwendolyn Ross Technology Law Scholarship is Miss Olive Martinez, who will be joining us this fall. A young woman stood up in the audience, tears streaming down her face. She looked exactly like I had at 18, brilliant, determined, and hungry for a chance. As the ceremony continued and Reed finally walked across the stage to receive his diploma, the applause was polite but distracted. Everyone was still talking about the scholarship, about my story, about the young woman who'd built a fortune while her family thought she was just serving tables. Reed's moment had become my moment, and unlike his achievements, mine couldn't be stolen. The aftermath hit like a tsunami. Gwendolyn! Mom's voice cracked across the parking lot as I walked away from the auditorium. Wait! I turned to see my entire family hurrying after me, Reed still in his graduation gown, his diploma clutched in his hand like a shield. What the hell was that? Dad's face was purple with rage. You humiliated us in front of everyone. I told the truth. You made us look like monsters. Mom was crying again, mascara streaking down her cheeks. How could you do this to Reed on his graduation day? How could you do what you did to me for 4 years? Reed finally spoke up, his voice shaky. Gwen, I never meant for things to go this far. I was going to tell you about using your research. When? After you got the job? After you built your entire career on my work? It wasn't your work. It was just research. It was my work. The words exploded out of me. My analysis, my insights, my expertise that you've been passing off as your own for months. A small crowd was gathering, other graduation families slowing down to watch the drama unfold. Someone was definitely recording with their phone. Keep your voice down, Dad hissed. People are staring. Good, let them stare. Let them see what you really are. What we really are? Mom stepped closer, her voice venomous. We're the parents who raised you, fed you, clothed you. We're the family who gave you a purpose when you had nothing else. You gave me nothing. You took everything. We gave you the chance to contribute to something meaningful. You gave me the chance to fund Reed's life while you told everyone I was too stupid for college. Reed flinched. I never said you were stupid. No, you just acted like it. You took my work, my ideas, my research, and you never once thought about what that meant for me. I thought you'd be happy to help. Happy? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You thought I'd be happy to watch you succeed with my stolen work while I served tables to pay for your success? That's not how it was. That's exactly how it was. My phone was buzzing constantly now. Text messages, emails, calls from numbers I didn't recognize. The story was already spreading. This is insane, Dad said, looking around at the growing crowd. You've lost your mind. All this over some computer nonsense? Computer nonsense that just endowed a $2 million scholarship. The number hit them like a physical blow. Mom actually staggered. 2 million? Reed's voice was barely a whisper. You have $2 million? I had $2 million. Now I have the satisfaction of knowing that students like Olive won't have to choose between their dreams and their family's expectations. You gave away $2 million out of spite? Dad looked like he might have a heart attack. I gave away $2 million to make sure other people get the chances you stole from me. We didn't steal anything from you? Mom was screaming now, completely beyond caring who heard. We made a practical decision. We invested in the child who could actually succeed. The child who succeeded by stealing from the child you threw away? Reed dropped his diploma. It fluttered to the asphalt like a wounded bird. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm really sorry, Gwen. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. Vanessa appeared at my elbow, slightly out of breath. The reporters want to talk to you. Are you ready? I looked at my family one last time. Mom was still crying. Dad looked broken. Reed was staring at his diploma on the ground. I'm ready. Gwendolyn, please. Mom reached for my arm. Don't do this. We can fix this. We can be a family again. I gently pulled away from her grip. We were never a family, Mom. We were just people who lived in the same house while you invested everything in Reed and expected me to be grateful for the scraps. That's not true. It is true. And now everyone knows it. I walked away with Vanessa, leaving them standing in the parking lot surrounded by strangers with cameras. Any regrets? Vanessa asked as we reached her car. I pulled out my phone and opened the message from Olive Martinez. Thank you for giving me the chance my family never would. I won't waste it. None, I said. Not a single one. Behind us, I could hear Mom calling my name one last time, but I didn't turn around. I'd spent 4 years looking back, waiting for them to see me, to value me, to treat me like I mattered. I was done waiting. The future I was building now belonged entirely to me.